Hey, everybody. You are listening to Area Code Batavia, a podcast about what it means to belong in Batavia, Illinois. I'm your host, Richard Clark. Before we get started today, I wanted to remind you that we are having our second ever Area Code Batavia live show at Sturdy Shelter this Thursday. If you're listening to this on the day of release, Monday the 6th, we will be having our live show Thursday, October 9th at 7 p.m. Check the show notes if you would like to purchase a ticket. You can also just subscribe to our 630 membership. You'll get free access that way. So however you want to do it, I would love it if you could come and join us there. We're going to have a lot of fun. We have 3 guests that I'm really excited about. We have Main Street Batavia. They will be talking about Batfest. Another guest will be Zachary Sage. He's the person behind Midnight on Morton, which is one of the most epic Halloween decorated houses and yards in Batavia. And then we also have a really special guest. The Batavia Paranormal Investigation Squad will be present, and we'll have a really fun surprise around that. You will not want to miss it. It's going to be a really interesting, fun episode. That's 7 o'clock at Sturdy Shelter, Thursday the 9th. For more information and to buy tickets, check out the link in the show notes. Today's episode is a conversation with Ward 5 alderpersons Abby Beck and Jim Farenbach. It's the latest in our City Council series where we have joint conversations with current Batavia City Council members from the same ward. There's a link to our other City Council conversations in the show notes. You can check that out. I spoke to Abby and Jim about what it's like serving on City Council, how they got into public service, and what makes Ward 5 special. Just as a note before we start, because the previous day's City Council meeting is discussed in this conversation, I wanted to flag that this conversation took place on September 3rd. The council meeting they are talking about is September 2nd. That will be linked in the show notes if you would like to check out that City Council meeting. Anyway, here is my conversation with Abby Beck and Jim Farenbach. How did Committee of the Whole go last night?
Last night was actually a random Tuesday night City Council meeting because of Monday's holiday.
City Council meeting.
Last night was City Council.
So how'd that go?
It was an interesting meeting. We had presentations from Suicide Prevention Services for Suicide Awareness Month. We had a presentation from Cal's Angels and a proclamation about pediatric cancer. So it started off, just heavy and emotional. Yeah. And the chamber spoke. And it's kind of fun at some of these council meetings where the first half an hour is spent just on community awareness and issue awareness, and we say nothing, and we just get to hear from people. So more data center talk, which was difficult. Those are difficult conversations.
A lot of competing interests there.
Some competing interests and some dismissiveness. Okay. There are people that are super comfortable with certain things and people that are not comfortable with certain things, and attitudes in the room can shift. And it was just kind of an icky one.
Interesting. Okay. Jim, did you feel that way?
You know what? I have to admit, due to the holiday schedule, I actually was not there last night. Okay. I had to be in Nashville for a client event, but I did watch the session afterwards and agreeing with Abby. I mean, people have different perspectives on the data center. So it's interesting to hear. Yeah. And I will say, since I've come into this role and I'm new, I mean, you've been 6 years? I've been 3 months, right? Yeah. So, getting familiar with things like, our aquifers and, our power supply and everything. Right. I will admit I came in thinking I knew a lot. And then the more I'm here, the more I'm like, hey, you know what? I didn't know that. And for me, I'm still learning about the lay of the land. Yeah, that seems like a consistent thing. In any government role is like people will go in with big plans. It's like we just started Parks and Rec. And this is like a classic. Yep. Tension on Parks and Rec. So you have these big plans of putting a park in a pit, and all of a sudden you recognize the issue. But I appreciate you sharing that up front, because I think this was something that also came up and was alluded to in my conversation with Ward 3 alder people, Alice and Kevin, was this tension of we have these serious issues to discuss. Everyone is really invested. And so it can get,
I don't know if heated is the right word. The exchange can feel frustrating in a way that not everyone feels heard or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just priority. People have different priority levels. I think everyone acknowledges all the issues are what they are. I don't see a lot of argument around that. What I do see argument around is what priority things should be addressed in, which, I will say a lot of it is just based on what your experiences were in Batavia, right? Yeah. So if you went through certain events or if you lived in a certain environment, you may think, hey, why don't we do A, B, and C first? Where somebody else who may not have the same experience would sit there and say, okay, we should do C, A, and B first.
Totally.
Right?
Yes.
So totally, that's my take on it.
But because of the difficulty of getting things to happen, a lot of times those arrangement of priorities is like, it's not like, which do we do first, right? It's like, which is happening, which is actually going to end up happening.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because there's this concept of, coming from my background, just, which is in business, things are very linear. You start, you work, and you complete. Yeah. And then you move on to the next one. Yeah. Right. With government, it seems like, from my perspective, a lot of things happen in parallel, right? And not always towards a set schedule. Yes. You know what I mean? So things will just kind of like pop up, vanish, pop up, vanish. You know what I mean? And staff's working on them, right? But we don't necessarily have visibility on what they're doing. Yeah. Right. So that can be unique. We just had a situation with with our economic development team, right? So we're trying to get a better lay of the land of, hey, what's our current estate as far as vacant businesses or, buildings, environmental issues, and stuff that you would think walking in the door, you figured it would have been done years and years ago, or there'd be like a regular report that went out or whatever, right? And as we get more into it, we realize it's not there. You know what I mean? So it's frustrating when you realize there are gaps. Okay. And I think it's just it's nature of the beast. To your point earlier, things just pop in. They just land. Right. Like data center, just land. Yeah. Like no one, if you were to ask 3 months ago, data center happening, we assume no. I even asked about it. Just funny. I asked about it 2 weeks before. Uh-huh. And then our city administrator, Max, he said, stay tuned. And that's when I knew something was coming in, right? Yeah. I think it's just the nature of the beast, which gets in the way of being able to prioritize stuff correctly. And get on the same page. Which creates that tension, right? I mean, who knows what's going to be here next 3 months, right? Yeah, that's crazy. You could show up at a meeting and it's something that happens and you have to react in real time. Is that kind of the thing? Oh. That sounds a lot. That sounds like a lot. Yeah, not only that, we get our agendas the Friday and then we meet on them either the Monday or Tuesday. Yeah. So at least I've gotten the habit of doing the Sunday scramble. Like, hey, what's going on? Uh-huh. Like, and honestly, it's like pulling up Copilot or, whatever the generative AI tool is. I'm trying to research everything, trying to figure all this stuff out. Uh-huh. And then you realize, holy shit. I mean, does everyone know this in the room? Do I have the right information and stuff like that? You know what I mean? And then a lot of in my opinion, a lot of what we talk about is just us kind of keying off each other to learn from each other what they know about a topic. Mm-hmm. And then based on that, we eventually get to a decision. We jumped right in, which is great. But I want to open with this question. We'll start with you, Abby. When was the first time you felt like you belonged in Batavia?
Well, I'm a fifth generation Batavian. Uh-huh. So I think it was kind of born in. It was in your DNA that you belonged in Batavia. Yeah. Certainly not knowing much else. Both my parents grew up here. Yeah, it's a really hard question to answer because I haven't known anything else. I think maybe the first time I realized I belonged here is moving away, living somewhere else. And it was that feeling of, well, I don't belong here. Yeah. That's for sure. This isn't it. And realizing, I don't think anybody appreciates their hometown until they experience something different. And so it was that pull home after experiencing a very different community that I knew wasn't for me. And wasn't a reflection of me, and it wasn't a place that felt healthy for me. So
you were at a different place that didn't feel healthy. In what way?
It was Las Vegas. It's not a
okay, I can imagine.
Not a normal place to live. So I don't feel bad also talking trash about it a little bit. Yeah. And I had a great time there. I had great friends there. I met my husband there. I appreciate Las Vegas a lot for what it is. Mm-hmm. Aside from, my husband and his weird friends that all grew up there and lived there forever. It's so transient. The level of community investment, the level of community engagement. Yeah. I started getting into municipal politics while I was there, while I was in grad school, and got real invested in the mayoral race and didn't even realize that I lived in unincorporated King County, or Clark County. Like I had so many complaints for City Hall and then realized I had no City Hall. It did not exist for me. And so it was just this, and nobody shows up. It's so disinvested. The schools are so disinvested in education, libraries, parks, public, systems. It's super cheap to live there. My friends, so cheap. Property taxes are so low. Income tax is non-existent. It is cheap to live there, but you get what you pay for. And I just saw that in all the people that I interacted with.
Yes.
I lived in the same cul-de-sac. It wasn't even a cul-de-sac. It was just a shared driveway with 4 homes. I learned one person's name in 4 years of living there.
Right.
And we moved back to Batavia. I was pregnant with my oldest. We lived in a townhouse with 6 units. And a month later I had a baby and I had gifts from all 6 people.
Wow.
I knew everybody by name. I knew them before I even moved in. So I think it was moving away.
The property tax thing is interesting to me because I also grew up in a place with very low property taxes, and you understand why. We were trying, I'm not joking. I went back home with my kids recently and we were trying to find any place in the town. And it's not like a two stoplight town. It's a real town. It's about the size of Batavia in some ways. We were trying to find any place in the town we could play basketball. Any hoop, anywhere. And there wasn't anything. The one playground near our house was locked up for some reason. And we drove around and we couldn't find anything. And I was like, this is nuts. I would rather pay high property. Then there's a limit to that. But, it just feels like worth it.
Right.
Jim, did you grow up here?
No, I grew up in Chicago and then in Park Ridge.
Okay. And when did you come to Batavia?
2005. Okay. So I came here from my wife and I. We were boyfriend and girlfriend. We lived in Oak Park. I had a condo there for a bit, just for a couple of years. And then she's a teacher in Wheaton. And when it became apparent we were going to be more of a thing, we decided to move near her work. I was consulting at the time. Didn't matter where I lived because I just needed to go to the airport. I was working here in Lap. I was working for the NSA. Not that NSA, a different NSA, Newspaper Services of America.
The what?
Newspaper Services. Yeah,
Ooh, interesting.
That was a big joke. Where do you work? NSA? No. Newspaper Services of America. And we had all the demographic information you could imagine for the Chicagoland area. Everything from household incomes to educational levels to just real estate value, just everything you could possibly imagine. I started just researching. I found this little spot called Batavia. Incredible value. Way compared to the quality of the schools, compared to the safety issue, compared to the people, the whole shebang. It had some quirks on it, but the fact is the home price was a deal. Okay. So when I was in Chicago in Lincoln Square, we had the tightly packed houses, all built around the 1920s. And so we ended up buying a 1920s American Foursquare over on your west side. That's how I ended up here. So totally by just random chance. Didn't know a soul when we came out here.
And when's the first time you felt like you belonged in Batavia?
I'll let you know when I find out.
Okay. No. Is that real though?
No. You know what? For whatever reason, there was a generation here that really wanted to stake ownership as being genuine Batavians. And as their influence waned a lot between 2010 and 2015. So I think around 2010 is when you heard that a lot less. And that's probably when I felt more genuine as far as community goes.
You could contribute?
Yeah.
What do you think caused that to wane? And I'm interested in your perspective on this too, Abby.
We had less resistance to just God-given obvious change.
Okay.
Things we can't, we need to work on developing our downtown. We need convenient shopping in Randall, because families are moving in, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't keep it a hamlet forever, right?
Yeah.
So when there's less resistance for that, I think when it really came apparent was that it had gone too far, in my opinion, was when we had the rec center vote for the one downtown. One downtown would have been, it's probably before you moved in, it would have been right where the McDonald's is. It would have been a beautiful setup. It would have been right in the downtown. It would have been a focal point for the community. Mm-hmm. And I think it was they got the numbers together. It was $7 more a year, something crazy like that. And people were bloodthirsty. And I understand people being on fixed income. Trust me, I really do.
Right.
But when you looked at the current state of the downtown and the value this would have bought, it didn't even occur to me to think, why would you be against this if the additional costs are so trivial? And I think after that moment, after that got voted down, people started realizing we got to work on this because this is getting ridiculous. Because more of it boils down to, what do you really want? I mean, do you want the place just to crumble into dust eventually? Because things age, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Abby, did you feel that as well?
I wasn't here.
Okay.
So there's definitely like a gap in my paying attention.
That's when you were in Vegas?
I was in college and then in Vegas. So I missed from 2001 to 2012, but wasn't really paying attention probably in the time frame you were talking about. I missed the vote on the rec center, but remember hearing about it. But I can kind of picture the old guard that you're talking about kind of fading away and some new blood and some new voices, definitely on council anyway, coming in around that time. That kind of shook things up. But a lot of change takes a long time. I think change takes even longer in Batavia. But my grandpa was on a task force that was starting to revitalize the downtown in the 90s. So this goes back 80s, 90s. Batavia Access was originally part of a downtown revitalization effort. My grandpa was on that. So I'm like, no, it just takes this long to get a lot of change. It shouldn't take this long. There's stuff to break down there for sure. But
why did the two of you decide to run for city council?
You're newer. Go ahead.
So I had gotten involved with the home rule vote back into 2018. And I had seen the benefits of home rule.
Which is what? In like two
sentences? Home rule is our ability to create our own laws and regulations.
As opposed to the state?
As opposed to just having the state. Yeah. Right. I had seen the benefit of that, specifically with the crime-free housing ordinances. I lived at the time I was living around a bunch of apartment complexes, and I had watched the improvement in just the quality of life in that neighborhood after that law passed, after that regulation got passed. And again, we had some people come in who were against home rule, and then when he got down to it, everything they wanted, their fear was all theoretical. It's like, well, this could happen. And the point is, there was a potential for them to get enough votes to actually repeal home rule. Okay. So that kind of drove me to action. And the funny thing was, I was no longer living in the same neighborhood at the time. When you deal, the issue back then, you got to put our mindset back then, because we're talking about 15 years ago. Batavia was cycling out generations, right? And so what happens a lot of times is, a property will get willed to somebody's grandson or granddaughter or son or daughter or whatever. And they may not be the most community-minded landlord. It's kind of, I'm trying to phrase this politically nicely. And so what happens is that they just don't maintain the property. Okay. Right? Yeah, and there's when people don't maintain a property, well, people still want to keep it built so they can get a rent on it, right? So what do? They find people who may not be the most ideal tenants for the community, meaning whether it be a criminal element or worse, they're going to find some people who are awesome and beautiful and then just give them crap housing. Okay. Right? You know what I mean? So the whole point is the whole vibe of the neighborhood just kind of goes like down. And with the crime-free housing ordinance, really all it did was just put landlords on notice, if we're honest about it. It just says, hey, you have to maintain the property. Okay. Like you have to be respectful of your community with these rental properties. There's not a lot of enforcement involved with it. I think I looked at numbers at one point. And very rarely is it invoked. But the point is, it just put landlords. Yeah. So it's nice. And that's the main function of it. Really. Right. So that's when you decided to run for city council, is because the home that got me involved in city government. That got you involved. Yeah. And then you started thinking, I want to run for city council. Well, I knew the old older person. Okay. Mark Ewer, and he's like, he served two tours. Yeah. He did 8 years, and I was like, I'm done. All right, well, maybe I'll go run. Very simple. Step into public service all of a sudden. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because based on the home rule thing, we ended up getting an audience of registered voters. Okay. And we have our little Facebook group, our Batavia, our government. And so I was just tracking everything based on that. So it seemed like a natural transition. That makes sense. Abby, what about you?
Well, like I said, I started following municipal government when I was back in Nevada. I was in grad school studying environmental science, but I was focusing specifically on urban sustainability issues and the leverage that municipal governments have to impact behavior and impact environmental impact. And so I focused very heavily on that. It was a lot of land use. It was a lot of transportation issues, and came back to Batavia after I graduated and started having kids, and went back to do this fellowship program with America Walks. It was America Walks Walking College, and got to dive a little bit deeper into walkability and bikeability issues during that, and was serving on the Batavia Environmental Commission at the time, and a little community group called Well Batavia, just trying to do little projects, little pop-up things to make Batavia a little bit more walkable, a little bit more bikeable, make people a little bit more aware. I think I was not aware of how nice and walkable and how much I missed that environment again until I moved to a Boomberg in the middle of the desert where it was 100% car reliant. And I wanted to celebrate that. And I wanted to promote that here in Batavia for all the environmental, social, and economic benefits that walkability and bikeability have. So it got me in front of council a few times. I came and presented promoting the road diet early on, promoting a couple other just community projects that we were doing. And so I started to get comfortable. I started to get to know a little bit about who the staff were, who the electeds were, how things worked. And my next door neighbor was my alderwoman. And so when she stepped down, very much like Mark, she was like, hey, would you consider running for my seat? So I did.
So one thing that's different from some of my previous conversations, maybe most of my previous conversations, if not all, is that you both ran against people in your initial thing. And it's interesting because you ran against two other people and you ran against one other person.
Yeah.
And how much did you win by? Sorry, not a bragging thing, but I'm just trying to remember. A lot.
Yeah.
You both won by a lot. It seemed
in the home rule, won by a lot too.
Yeah.
So I am the grand champion of the largest win margins.
Okay. All right. So did that give you a sense of confidence coming in, and how long did that last, if so?
Yeah, it did give me a bit of confidence.
Yeah.
And the men I ran against were awesome. Like, they were very interesting, engaged individuals. One was the former mayor of not Highland Park, Hinsdale, and learned a lot from him in the interactions that I got to have during the campaign process.
Yeah.
So that was a huge vote of confidence that I was not expecting.
Yeah, I'm always interested when people run against people they like.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? It's like, it feels, I have a personality that couldn't do it because I just feel bad the whole time.
Well, what's great is that you have no idea. You submit papers and you don't know if anybody else is running.
And you're in it.
And then it's like you hear, I was just getting text messages on who's this guy? And I was like, I don't know. And then I realized there was an article in the newspaper that had pulled the names of people that had submitted papers that day.
Yes.
I was like, didn't even know if I'd have opponents. You just don't know. You kind of go in blind.
Yes.
Which is good.
Yes, that makes sense. Was that the case for you?
Yeah, I mean, as far as confidence, I mean, probably not. And the reason why is because I know the town well. So the people who voted for me, I mean, I knew they're going to vote for me, right? It's just, so I'm more interested in people who I didn't think would vote for me. The one thing I will say about the 5th ward, our ward, it's the most dense ward. These are usually the competitive ones. I think somehow Mark managed to survive without anyone running against him. But I know when I was going to run, somebody else wanted to run. I just reached out and I said, hey, you know what? My youngest child is going to high school. I know I'm going to be here for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
I'd like to run. Do you mind? Right. And he said, okay, I'll pick it up next time.
They changed their mind.
Yeah, they changed their mind. It wasn't a rude thing. It was just more like, I
just had the conversation.
Yeah. And that's the big thing when you run for city council is that we have an unusually large number of alderpersons required.
Yes, I've noticed that. Yeah. The guy who edits this podcast was like, my town is significantly larger than yours. And I think we have like 6 people running it.
Right. And so as a result, a lot of people they run unopposed or they're appointed. Right. Yeah. And I think that's a problem. And I think part of it is that the thought process of I have constituents, would they approve? Right. I think sometimes that for me, the check's automatic, like with the, you know what I mean? But I think if you're appointed or you run unopposed, the check may not be automatic. Yeah. Right.
You want some stakes involved, and are you representing your ward well? Yeah.
Or if I do this, will somebody run against me? Because
yes,
you know what I mean? A little bit of the carrot and the stick sort of thing.
Totally. When you were in place, you alluded to this earlier, there's this moment of like, oh, this is harder than I thought. But like, are you, respective to where you thought you would be, what you thought you would accomplish, how are you feeling about that? And I'll actually start with you, Abby, since you're like, you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, I came in with the hope of getting the road diet done, and it's halfway there. And so there is a feeling of accomplishment and some boxes checked off of my to-do list, which feels really good. And there have been other things that I have pushed for that have gotten accomplished. And sometimes you just have to celebrate those tiny like inches down the field where you just know, it's going to take a long time for us to get to that ultimate goal of where I would love to see the town go. And you have to celebrate the inches along the way that get you there. And you have to be proud of the effort you put in or the voice you had and the persistence and to get there. And I think that is what's hard is the patience and the long game and the iterative nature of it's not linear like business, it's going to be try something, evaluate, revise, do it again, get challenged, have to fight it out again, go through it until you get it right. And it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. But I do feel proud of some of the things that we've been able to get through in the last 6 years, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. What about you?
Yeah, I think for the past 3 months, it's only been 3 months.
That's right. It's only been 3 months.
Right.
That's crazy.
The pond's getting dredged. You know what I mean? I know for the people around there, that was a big concern for them. Okay. Right? So that's going through. That's just in 3 months, right? The data center, love it or hate it. I mean, that if that were to go through.
Can I make an assumption and just call it out? I'm assuming you love it and Abby, you hate it? Is it just to oversimplify?
I don't hate it. I voted no. I should have voted no the first time. I voted no the second for the amendment based on concerns about the water usage and based on some assumptions that put my mind at ease. And I voted yes, assuming that there would be a water efficient system in place. Yeah. And when that was not guaranteed in that second amendment, realizing like that was just a dumb play on my part, never should have approved until I saw it in writing. Just a misstep for me. Yeah.
I love your willingness to say that. And I think that probably, have you had a moment like that, Jim, where you feel like you had a misstep?
Yeah. I'm sure I'll have one.
And if you thought what would you think it will be?
What I think it'll be is overassuming something.
Okay. Yeah.
Or overassuming somebody else's motivation. I'm sure that'll be where I have a big, not being able to be at the meeting last night was a step on my part. I thought it was going to be canceled because it was the day after Labor Day. But yeah, so far so good. Yeah. I mean, it's all the drama. Nothing dramatic. Yeah. I mean, my professional career, I work with a lot of clients, and so I'm used to getting yelled at, screamed at, virtually punched in the face. Okay. So it's fine. It takes a lot to upset me. Yeah. But yeah, I think we're doing a great job. I really do, especially for 16 people, 17 people, 14 people, all making decisions together. That's a big group to get to a line to do anything. Yeah. Right. So I mean, I can tell you why those larger towns only have 6 alderpersons. It's because it's easier to get a decision. But what it is? What is something about Ward 5 that you wish other people knew, whether it's constituents, people listening, other council members?
I think something super special about Ward 5 is that we have such a diversity of housing stock, that we have a more diverse set of constituents. Yeah. I think there is strength. I think monocultures are weak wherever they occur in nature. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that my house was built 10 years after my neighbor's house next to me was built 10 years after that these places were built slowly and intentionally just kind of goes to a larger conversation just philosophically about how I think towns should be built. That I'm, within walking distance of 3 generations in my family right now. There's not a lot of neighborhoods that can support that are built that way. I have multiple different income levels in my neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I have renters. I have duplexes. I have millionaires. I grew up in my neighborhood. I grew up next to really wealthy people. Mm. We were not really wealthy people. Mm. That diversity and that commingling is strength. And I think that's special to the 5th Ward. That really
resonates with me. It's one of the biggest reasons actually we moved here, and particularly where we moved, because I also live in the 5th Ward. It's just class diversity all up and down the road, which is fitting.
Mm-hmm. I echo everything you just said. That's what attracted me to Batavia originally. Uh-huh. I could not do a subdivision. I just couldn't. I'll never forget when my wife was like, we had our second child. She's like, we need more space. Yeah. And so first thing we did was, we went to the subdivision. I can't live there. I just physically can't do it. I never lived in a property that was built after 1960. Okay. Right? And whether it was 2 flats in Chicago or, first generations, suburban bungalows or just whatever. It's always been, just older housing. And I ended up in a 1960s ranch in the 5th Ward, right by the Frank Lloyd Wright, around there. And when we moved in there, I'll never forget, number one, the person we bought it from, they tried to flip it. They ran out of money. So we got a deal. I'm always somebody, I'm like, I got a deal. Right. So then we had to, of course, put twice as much money into it than we thought to get up to spec. But I will never forget when the first time we went trick-or-treating, we went right behind us on a street called Windsor, which is a double cul-de-sac street. There's only one way in. And this woman answers the door, and it's beautiful, mansion. And this woman answers the door, and she goes, "Oh my God, I haven't had trick-or-treaters in 10 years." Because the neighborhood was aging out. Like people were going to retirement homes, or they were, going to go live with their children. And these homes were just, popping to families come in, right? So when we moved in, we were the only family with children. And now I have 12 children on my block.
Yeah.
And then they built new housing across the street from us, that's brand new, 2 new houses. I have another one going up near us. We are, in speaking of which, I feel compelled to mention, we are going to see our first real infill development in Batavia. Like it's already happening over on Maple Street. And I mean classic, like infill, like you see like in a Hinsdale or Park Ridge.
What does that mean?
So with Batavia and the 5th Ward specifically, and the best example is over on Maple, you have a lot of houses where they're just dramatically undersized for their lot.
Okay.
Right. And that was the preference back then.
Yeah.
Right? Believe it or not, we can't imagine it now. Bigger houses used not to be considered a good thing. People because they're harder to maintain and people that didn't necessarily value the space. So these houses are like these like little 1.5 story ranches on these massive lots. And it's a nice neighborhood, right? So what's happening there is you're seeing these 3,000 square foot homes go in, where they're replacing a 1,200 square foot ranch.
Okay.
Right. And they're beautiful homes. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But it's just one of those things where that's going to be more of a thing in the 5th Ward because it is such a nice neighborhood and because these lots are so oversized for the housing. It's a natural place for that to happen.
Okay. Yeah. What is one thing that working in public office has taught you about yourself?
I go home from meetings, and if I can't sleep and if I'm spinning around a decision I made, I know that I voted out of following some energy in the room and not sticking true to what I know is right.
Yeah.
I have learned to kind of monitor my sense of calm after a meeting and check in with myself on whether or not, was that true? Was that true for me?
Yeah.
Or was that reactive? And so it's been really interesting. And
using your emotions as a form of data.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And so I'm always happiest. I mean, and sometimes it's like, it'll be some of the worst, meetings or some of the tensest meetings, and the vote might not even go my way, and I'll sleep great, and then other times just like stew on decisions I made. And it's been really interesting.
Did that happen after the data center conversation?
The first one.
The first one? Yeah. Mm-hmm. What about you?
I've learned people talk before the meetings, quite frankly. So part of this is like, okay, how many people talk together? And the question becomes like...
People being like other council members?
Yeah. And it's just a fact of life. I mean, it's very natural and it's understandable. And so part of it is, how do you want to address it? Right. And the way you address it really is you have to come to council almost with like a laundry list of here are my points. And you have to kind of, just roll down each one because you're fighting against a tide you may not be aware of. Right. However, the question becomes, and where my frustration kicks in is we really do get the agenda Friday at 3:00 or 4:00, and then we meet on it like Monday or Tuesday. So not everyone has the ability to do the same amount of homework required. So I think that if I were to walk in the door and there you get to say, hey, what's one thing Batavia could do to have more efficient city government? These agendas need to be published at least a week ahead of time. Yeah, you know what I mean? So people have time to do homework.
What keeps that from happening right now? Okay. Do you know? No. Okay.
But I will say, to your first point, I talk to people before meetings.
Yeah.
People process information in different ways.
Yeah.
I have questions. I have concerns. I will be unclear about what a memo means or what this, what the implications are.
Yeah.
And I'll be curious for other people's perspectives.
Yeah.
And I have grown great relationships with a majority of people on council. There are rules to how we can conduct ourselves outside of open meetings.
Right.
And we all follow those rules. Mm-hmm. But I will say that my ability to participate productively in city council meetings has grown greatly after becoming comfortable enough to ask questions and reach out to fellow alder people.
Yeah.
And chat and ask questions and hash things out. Having your first draft thoughts come out at a table of 14 people on TV is terrifying and not productive. I mean, that's not a productive setting for conversation. Smaller groups and being able to hash things out is really important. And I think makes us stronger when we work better behind the scenes and we are more respectful and comfortable and friendly behind the scenes, then we are more productive in city council chambers.
Yeah. So Jim, I realize you answered the question, what you learned, but what did you learn about yourself in the time that you've been in public service in the last 3 months?
I learned it was my free choice to do this and entirely optional. You know what? I think the one thing I learned is like some people just like they'll just rant. It doesn't matter whether it's public or in city council chambers.
And you do that too, or?
No, I don't. But part of it is that's just what you're dealing with, right? Like there is no necessarily like they are jumping 4 miles down the field, and maybe in a direction you're not even attending, or that's even true, right? What I need to get better on is just here's what you almost have to say here's what I'm not doing. I'm learning that. Because I hate to say it like that, but like truly, like, people feel threatened or they feel like you're going a direction that's going to turn against them. So they will just, like dart over like that. Right. That's been interesting seeing that dynamic. And I will say professionally, I don't see that a lot because people have budgets and they have stuff they have to get done.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's not free form. You know what I mean? If they have a question, they will just point blank ask you like what are you, by saying that, what do you mean by, why are you positioning it like that, or whatever it be, right? And the reason is because they need something they need to get done. Like, you know what I mean? But with city council, it's getting back to the point we brought up when this whole conversation started, it's in fits and starts, a lot of this stuff, right? Yeah. So like if a conversation starts, and it goes down a certain rabbit hole, well, guess what? People will forget by the time they pick it up again, right? You know what I mean? They may not understand that, hey, we've already covered that prior, right? So it's a bit of like 1 step forward, 2 steps back with a lot of this stuff,
right?
Just based on that. Hopefully, we can change that. I am hoping we get to the point soon where we get those agendas. I think that'll clear a lot of that.
Okay, last question to you. What does it mean to belong in Batavia?
I know this is your whole theme, and yet I did not come with fully baked thoughts.
That's good. I like processing in real time. It's way better for take.
I feel like belonging means you feel comfortable, you feel seen, you feel known. I think you need to be known, and fully embraced to really feel comfortable and probably feel like you belong. And I think that Batavia, being the more kind of humble member of the Tri-Cities historically as being a blue collar town, has embraced a broader diversity of people over its time and over its history. And that's something that I think is really important to continue to foster. I think that, and I would hope that people, and I think this is probably the thing that we have to work on. I think it's something Jim and I agree on, that we don't want people to walk around in their physical space and go, ooh, I don't belong here. Like as a reflection of the space, not a reflection of the people too. So I think it is both that kind of comfort and vibe in where you are based on your surroundings, the physical place, your sense of place, but then also a factor of being known and being seen.
Right.
Here.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what? Kind of just branching off of what Abby said, which I agree with all of that. Realizing you are part of a whole. Other people have soft influence on you, and you have soft influence on them, whether you know it or not. Right. So part of the challenge is making sure people feel like, sorry, I want to use. Feel like they belong, but realize with that belonging becomes a responsibility. You know what I mean? Like we do have to respect each other. We do have to take each other's point of view into consideration. We can't just try to bulldoze stuff, right? But on the flip side, we have to understand that, a city is a growing vine. And if you don't feed it with new people, new ideas, new cultures, new buildings even, it will just dry up and die. I've lived in suburbs, or I've lived near neighborhoods that have dried up and died. And I'll tell you point blank, you think it happens in 3 or 4 generations, it happens in about 10 years. So that's something I'm always cognizant of, especially when I'm on city.
Yeah, it's interesting. There is a running theme of belonging requires more than just feeling like you're a part of something. It's feeling like you're impacting that, which feels important.
I think Batavia's had a good track record of people recognizing a need and addressing that need. Yeah. And the community groups that have popped up over time and the amount of volunteer investment here in Batavia, I hope is lending to that sense of belonging for people, that you can come in and make a difference. You can come in and make an impact.
Thanks for listening to Area Code Batavia. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. If you enjoyed this podcast, you should absolutely subscribe to the newsletter. Just click the link in the show notes. Most importantly, If you know someone who would love to hear this podcast, please share it with them. Word of mouth is the best way to grow our community and help more people feel like they belong in Batavia, Illinois. Batavia is produced by Area Code Audio. It's hosted and produced by me, Richard Clark, with additional production help from Jennifer Clark. Edited and mixed by Matt Linder.